So what is about to transpire? I'm going to roll through all the big name position players on the Chiefs and the Eagles. We're going to talk about what the numbers are now and try and get ahead of stuff. And we will begin, guys, with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Duval.
So, like, the Liam Cohen Duval thing is very weird. Are we sure he's okay? The Bucks hate him. Did everyone see this? That, like, Liam Cohen wanted to, like, he's got some of his friends on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers staff. You want to hire them with the Jaguars? And the Bucs said, no, like, we will not let you interview them. Duval. He's something going on there. I'm not sure what it is. So we'll roll through the Kansas City Chiefs here. And I want to start with the running backs for Kansas City. So Kareem Hunt right now is being lined at 45.5 rushing yards. Isaiah Pacheco, he's at 22.5. I think some people might hear that, might see it on their BetMGM screen and say, like, wow, that's like a huge disparity between these two. Pacheco entered the year as a starting running back. He was a starting running back, obviously, last year in the Super Bowl when the Chiefs beat the San Francisco 49ers. But then, you remember that Isaiah Pacheco has not looked the same since he returned from his broken leg. Maybe our expectations were a little too high. Like, he literally broke his leg and came back in the same season and has not looked the same since he came back. And Kareem Hunt has been dominating this backfield for the Kansas City Chiefs. In the AFC Championship game last Sunday against the Buffalo Bills, Kareem Hunt outcarried Isaiah Pacheco 17-5. And he's outcarrying Pacheco across the two playoff games for Kansas City 25-11. And this is where being bettors and this being a betting show, this is where that comes into play, comes into account, right? Because, I think it's possible for someone to construct a narrative, right? Okay, here's another 2 weeks for Pacheco to heal. Pacheco entered the year as the lead back. Like, there's no question Pacheco has more, quote-unquote, upside, right, than Kareem Hunt. So it's one thing to say it. But the question that you have to ask yourself when you do what we do, right, is, would you bet on it? I wouldn't. I think the disparity between the two is right. I think that Hunt should be lined probably 20 yards higher. I don't know if I want to bet either guy because maybe Pacheco does like cut into the workload. I just don't really have an idea. I do think that everything looks about right as far as the pricing goes. The one Kansas City running back bet that I do like, though, and we saw this player have some success at the end of the AFC Championship game because he'll play in obvious passing downs, he'll play in 2 minute, is Samaje Perine, who you might remember having the game-clinching catch. I remember I won a lot of money on the Chiefs. It was awesome. Samaje Perine's game-winning catch in the AFC Championship game against the Bills, the catch and run for the first down. Perine's receiving yards prop is 6.5. And think about the two running backs ahead of him, right? Hunt and Pacheco are both good players. Pacheco's better when he's healthy. Neither profiles, and especially like Kareem Hunt used to be an electric pass-catching running back. At this stage in his career, he's not. I think Perine's likely to be like the main pass-catching running back for the Chiefs in this game. So if I had to bet one Chief running back over at this point in the process, let's go over 6.5 receiving yards for Samaje Perine.
Say hello to Lumber for me.
As far as, shout out to Office Space, as far as the Chiefs receivers go, the big story here is the reemergence of Juju Smith-Schuster, which is really funny, right? Because now here's Chiefs-Eagles again after Juju had 7 for 53 in Super Bowl 57. Obviously drew like maybe the game-deciding holding penalty, James Bradbury, towards the end of the game. So Juju was awesome in that Super Bowl, and he may get an opportunity to be very good here as well. He had 3 for 60 in the AFC Championship game against the Buffalo Bills. It was really surprising to me. People remember here in the NBC Sports Now Power Hour, prior to the Chiefs-Texans divisional round game, I bet the over receiving yards on DeAndre Hopkins, and he didn't even come close. He's barely playing right now, and he seems to be okay with that based on like things that he said to the media. So when we look at the Chiefs receiving group now, it's pretty clear. Xavier Worthy's the one, like with a bullet right now. Hollywood Brown is the 2. Travis Kelce is actually the 1, but he's a tight end. So we're just talking like wide receivers, like pass catchers. Kelce's the 1. Juju Smith-Schuster's the 3. And DeAndre Hopkins is the 4. Now, for anyone out there that would say, because I was talking to someone this week, and this was the case that this person made to me, was, well, you save Hopkins for this game. I couldn't disagree with that more. Like, you needed to beat the Bills. They barely beat Buffalo. If they needed Hopkins, that like Andy Reid was not saving anything for the Super Bowl. Because the implication there is that Buffalo was like a curtain-jerking jabroni and that I didn't like the Bills in the game. That is definitely not the case. So again, is it possible that DeAndre Hopkins has 7 for 90 in the Super Bowl? Of course it's possible. I'm not going to tell you it's not going to happen. But would you bet on it with the information that we have right now? I'd be more apt to take Juju over 12.5 receiving yards. I would imagine that number climbs up over the course of the week. Now, as for Travis Kelce, plays a ton of snaps, obviously. 2 for 19 last week against the Buffalo Bills in the AFC Championship. I had his over, it lost. It was no fun. Kelce's yardage prop is at 62.5. Bet square, don't care. I would imagine that I'll be on that Travis Kelce over at some point in between now and kickoff of Super Bowl 59. And just keep this in mind because everyone likes Noah Gray, right? Kansas City second, like the number 2 tight end. With the Chiefs playing all these receivers now, I don't know like if the tight ends are going to be getting the ball outside of Travis Kelce. Maybe like, and I'll talk about anytime touchdowns a little later, maybe down by the goal line. I don't know if this is going to be a Noah Gray game. Worthy and Hollywood both look good to me. Worthy 56.5, Hollywood 41.5. I would be much more apt to play Worthy. I think he has more blow-up game potential. And Worthy's rushing yards prop will be a hot topic while we're in New Orleans, currently sitting at 5.5. I have no opinion yet, but I would imagine that a lot of people will next week in New Orleans on Radio Row on the Xavier Worthy rushing yards prop.
I am a peacock! You gotta let me fly!
We move now to the Philadelphia Eagles. Saquon Barkley's rushing yards number is 112.5. Saquon Barkley's rushing yards performance thus far in this postseason is as follows: 119 yards wild card round against the Packers, 205 in the snow in the divisional round against the LA Rams, and 118 against the Commanders in the NFC title game on only 15 carries because they didn't really need him at the end of the game because they were up by a million. 112.5 does feel low when I say that, right? But then we remember back in Super Bowl 57, and obviously like the teams are not the same, but just like what Kansas City's strategy was in that game, and no one that the Eagles had at that point is close to what Saquon's. Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwell. Saquon's much better than those guys. Eagles running backs were held to 45 yards rushing in that game. And I think it stands to reason, right? This makes sense. Steve Spagnuolo, really good defensive coordinator. Why would you let Saquon beat you? Like, you stop Saquon and you make Jalen Hurts beat you. To be fair, Jalen Hurts almost did beat the Chiefs. It was the best game of Jalen Hurts' career in Super Bowl 57. I don't know that I'll bet the under on Saquon Barkley. I don't know if I have the guts to do that. But I also don't know if I'm going to bet the over. So just everybody keep that in mind. Chiefs' defensive game plan, what it's likely to be. I don't know if I like the over on Saquon Barkley rushing yards.
Oh, yeah!
As far as the Eagles receivers go, talked about this yesterday on the show. A.J. Brown. I think the number it's still low. It's up to 70.5 now. We gave it out yesterday at 68.5. And it's going to keep going up. Now, again, if you don't like Saquon Barkley necessarily to have like 150 rushing yards, I think maybe the Chiefs play with a lead at some point here. It stands to reason that Jalen Hurts is going to have to throw a little more than usual, right? Jay Croucher, NBC sports betting analyst, talked about that on the show yesterday here in the NBC Sports Now Power Hour. And if Jalen Hurts is going to throw more than usual, then A.J. Brown's number, I think it's way low at 70.5. I would imagine this climbs into the mid-70s, maybe even like the mid to high 70s as we approach kickoff. I think there's a lot of room for this number still to go up. I do like the A.J. Brown over receiving yards quite a bit. Devontae Smith is awesome. His number's low at 50.5. I'd rather take a look at Dallas Goedert. And Sam Paniotovich was on with us earlier in the show, our teammate on the BetQL Network. And if you missed it, just search YouBet wherever you find your podcasts. He likes Goddard a lot in this game. Goddard's receiving yards prop is 52.5. He's been Jalen Hurts' binky since Goddard came off of IR in Week 18 against the Giants. And we have seen tight ends. The Bills couldn't because their tight ends stink, especially Dalton Kincaid. Drop the pass at the end of the game. I appreciate it. Dallas Goedert does not stink. And we can see this Chiefs defense get hit over the middle. I do like Dallas Goedert quite a bit in this game for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Drop the puck.
It just there was a blast from the past for the hashtag real ones. And we'll talk about the quarterbacks and the rushing yards prop next week on the show. Just want to close with 2 long shot anytime touchdown thoughts. Number 1, we had Jason Sobel on, BetMGM ambassador, SiriusXM PGA Tour radio host earlier this week. Search YouBet wherever you find your podcast to check it out. He talked about Chiefs kick and punt returner, Nico Remigio. I do like that because I feel like every time Remigio gets the ball in his hands, he's a threat to score. The other one would be when the Eagles get the ball down by the goal line. Everyone expects a tush push or Saquon to get the ball. Is it possible that a tight end leaks out into the flat, uncovered, and that tight end, Grant Calcaterra,